Hi everyone, this is an online lecture for AE and the multiplier. From this point onwards, we move out of ADAS. Okay, this will be a different model. Let's see how different is it. Now, last 2 weeks we learned about money. Its creation. It came from commercial bank lending and how central bank control it to control interest rate and therefore the economy. Now, this branch of economics about money is called the monetarist kind of model. They believe that controlling money will help to control the economy. Okay. Now, this group of economists are sometimes called the classical economists because they came first. All right. What came after that was this man. His name is John Keynes. Okay. His branch of economics came a bit later. It's called Keynesian economics. Okay. This branch of economics don't think that money can help control the economy. Okay, what they believe is the aggregate components of the economy is far more important than money. All right, so this is an alternative to how we can understand and control the economy. Although when you study it, there's no conflict. All right, let's see what this model is all about. Now, AE is mathematically equal to AD because both of these functions, the components are exactly the same. Your C plus G plus I plus X minus M. Okay, mathematically they are equal. Now, if they are equal, why are they named differently? Why don't just call both AD or both AE? Now, that's because they are both used differently. How different? Now, in AD, when we draw the diagram, on the y-axis was the price level. Okay, we use CIGXM to measure inflation. Okay, now for here, AE, we use it to measure changes in income level compared to real GDP or your real income. Okay, let's take a look diagrammatically how different are they. Now, this is it. On the left is AE. Now, AE is our total planned spending, CIGXM. Okay, that means how much does consumer plan to spend? How much does government plan to spend? How much does business plan to investment, and then X minus M. Okay, this is how much planned spending is taking place in the economy versus our income level. Okay, now you can see when income level increases, our planned spending also increases. Okay, this should be reasonable because the more you have, the more you want to spend, right? Okay, now on the other hand, when you look at our AD model, we are comparing real GDP versus the price level. Okay, high price, the GDP demanded is low. Low price, the GDP demanded is high. Okay, this was our previous AD model. AD is also consists of consists of our same component CIGXM. Okay, just that it's being used differently in terms of comparison. Okay, that's why we call it a different name to avoid confusion. Okay, and to emphasize the difference. Now, so what is AE? AE refers to our total planned spending. Okay, our CIGXM. Okay, across different levels of income. I already explained earlier. The richer we are, when income goes up, AE will go up. We plan to spend more. I want you guys to note something. The AE curve does not start from zero. Okay, in this model, it is impossible that our spending can be zero. All right, it starts from somewhere. I'll explain this a bit later, but I want you guys to know it starts from somewhere. Okay, now later on when we talk about consumption function, you will realize why does it start from somewhere. Okay. Now these are the components of AE, right? Consumption, government, expenditure, investment, exports and imports. Okay. Now in AE, we make a further distinction into what kind of components are they. Are they autonomous? Autonomous means they are independent and free. That means it can take place without changes to your national income, all right, or your GDP. Okay. Or they could be components that depend on changes to national income. That means you're richer, then you can buy more, or you poorer, you buy less. Okay, but this autonomous, let's take a look at this autonomous status first. Okay, now autonomous means it's independent and can exist on its own. Now, for example, in government expenditure, when national GDP is dropping, government can use fiscal policy, expansionary fiscal policy, and increase expenditure. Okay, so government can adjust its spending freely, all right, without depending on national GDP. All right. Similarly, for investment, businesses can make investment in Singapore, for instance, without changes to GDP. Okay, it's not dependent on that. If Apple companies find that they want Singapore location and other factors, it doesn't matter whether our GDP drops this year or increase this year. Okay, they'll make the investment anyway. So it's not dependent on changes to your GDP. Similarly, when other countries buy things from us, that means we export to our exports to them is not dependent on our GDP. They buy from us because they like and want the export. Okay, whether we are richer or poorer this year, it doesn't matter. Okay, so these components are autonomous, independent and free. It can happen on its own. Now, for income-induced component, you must have income or higher income before these components can happen or take place. Okay, now imports, you need to have income before you pay other people for their imports, right? Or you must have a higher income before you can import more, all right? Because you're going to pay those guys, all right? Now, consumption is a very special component because it is both autonomous and income-induced. Why is it so special? We shall come to it in a moment. Now, as mentioned, consumption and import expenditure are at least partially dependent on our income level, and we want to know how income level affect the items. At this level, we will only be looking at consumption, okay? How income levels affect consumption. Now, consumption is the planned spending of a household on goods and services. Now, in this model, there's a assumption that everything is planned. That means when we spend, we all got a plan how much we want to spend, okay? And our spending is reflected in this consumption function. Okay, let's take a look at what is it. Now, this is our consumption function. This function captures the way that we spend. Okay, let's see whether you can draw some relationship with this, okay, with your own spending. Now, in this consumption function, it says that our spending, our consumption consists of two parts. One is autonomous and one is income dependent or income induced. Okay, just now we saw from the earlier slide that consumption is both autonomous and income induced. Okay, so our consumption in this function consists of two parts. One is autonomous, one is income induced. Now, what is autonomous consumption? In this model, it assumes that our autonomous consumption is consumption for those necessities, those very bare necessities to keep us alive, like food and water. Even without income, we must spend on these things, otherwise we will not exist. Okay, so this autonomous consumption is for those very basic kind of goods or services that we must spend in order to keep ourselves alive. Okay, so that's why it must happen regardless of whether we are earning or not. Okay, now this income dependent portion, which is BYD, okay, or income induced portion, means that we are spending a portion. This portion is a ratio. B is marginal propensity to consume. Is the ratio that we will consume our disposable income. Okay. Now remember from our previous chapter, our disposable income is the income that we earn, the salary that we earn after paying taxes. Okay. So this is our salary, our take-home salary. B is the portion that we will spend our salary. Okay. And this portion is called marginal propensity to consume. Okay, the ratio that we will consume our disposable income. All right, so overall, this consumption function describes our spending behavior as the amount that we spend on the bare necessities to keep us alive, and after we start earning a salary, we spend a portion of it. Okay, so this consumption function captures our spending habits in general. Okay. Now, how do we calculate MPC, which is the ratio that we spend our income? Okay, now this formula is given by a change in consumption divided by change in disposable income. It's a change on both levels. Okay, so example, if for every $10 billion increase in disposable income, our consumption increased by 8 billion. Okay, so we use a formula, change in C is 8. Okay, change in YD, disposable income is 10. So our MPC is 0.8. Okay, now 0.8 can be understood as 80% of our income is being spent. Okay, so but we present it in ratio format 0.8. Okay, but you can understand it as percentage terms. 80% of our disposable income is being spent. Now, savings is the amount that's left over after you have spent. Now, take note, in this model, there's only two ways you can deal with your disposable income. Either you consume, that means you spend it, or you save it. Okay, there's no third way. Either you consume or you save. So what you don't consume, the remainder becomes your savings. Okay, let's take a look at the savings function. Now, our savings function is directly related to our consumption function. Okay, now just now we mentioned that in consumption, we spend on the bare bone necessities to keep us alive. Okay, now that costs money. Okay, that's why there's an A component. Now, where did that money come from? It comes from your savings. Okay, so this model kind of assumes that there's some savings lying around. Okay, you already have some savings. So whatever that you spend there for your survival, you are taking out from your savings. So here at savings function is minus A. Okay, now just now we spent the B portion of our disposable income. So the remainder, 1 minus B, becomes our savings. Okay, so savings function typically means, okay, we are taking out from our savings to finance our autonomous spending on the bare bone necessities, and whatever is left over of our salary, we save it up. Okay, so your savings function is minus A, okay, plus 1 minus BYD, the remainder of our salary that we didn't spend. Okay, now so the formula for calculating MPS, that means the portion of our savings of our disposable income, change in savings divided by change in disposable income. Okay, again, it's a change both sides. So example, every $10 billion increase in disposable income, $2 billion rise in savings. So MPS, just take 2 divided by 10, 0.2. Again, we present it in ratio form. Okay, but you can understand it in percentage term. That means we save 20% of our income on average. Okay. Now, again, we emphasize there's only two ways you can deal with your disposable income. Either you consume it or you spend it. Okay, so your one whole income is divided into MPC, your inclination to spend, and MPS, your inclination to save. Okay, so if you spend 80% of your income, naturally you save 20%. Okay, there's only two ways you can deal with your income. So MPC plus MPS is equals to 1. Okay, so YD, disposable income, you can only have two ways of dealing with it. Either you consume it or you save it. Alright. Now let's present our consumption and savings function in diagram format. First of all, we need a 45-degree line. Now, what is this 45-degree line for? Now, because it's 45 degree, it cuts the angle into exact halves. Okay. Now, when you're drawing this, just label it 45 degrees. I don't have to really measure. Okay. But the usage of this line is it shows us all the points where consumption is equals to your disposable income. Okay. Because it's 45 degree. So it shows us all the points whereby you are spending as much as you're earning. Okay, now we need this line because we want to see whether we are overspending or underspending. Okay, let's put in our consumption curve. Now, your consumption curve does not start from 0. Remember, our consumption function is C is equal to A plus BYD. Okay, Now, A is present as autonomous consumption. That means we must spend in order to keep ourselves alive, even though our disposable income is zero. Okay, as living human beings, we cannot don't spend. Okay, so our spending has to occur somewhere, even if our income is zero. So we don't start from zero, we start from somewhere. So this amount, okay, in any point, an exam or test, it has to be given to you. How much is it? All right. And when we start earning an income, YD increases, our consumption will start to go up. Okay, we earn more, we spend more. Okay, observe this point when the consumption function meets with our 45-degree line. Okay, now at that point, it means that we are spending as much as we have. Let's observe that point more closely. Now, when we are spending as much as we have, obviously we are saving nothing, right? So saving is zero when consumption line hits the 45-degree line, okay? And you know that this portion A here, autonomous consumption, is financed from savings, okay? So savings got to start from minus A. And saving here is zero because consumption hits the 45-degree line. So we can draw our savings function this way. Okay, so this is our savings function. All right, so let's review. Our autonomous consumption is financed from our savings. So this is A, this is minus A. When consumption hits the 45-degree line, okay, saving is zero. Okay, so this is our savings function. Now, how are these two related? Now, let's take a look. On the left side of zero savings, that means on the left side over here, can you see that your consumption blue color line is above your 45-degree line? Okay, now this means that you're spending more than balance. Okay, you're spending more than balance. Now, how do you finance this part? You take out from savings. Okay, now mathematically, therefore, this area, okay, that you overspend more than the 45-degree line is equal to this area. Okay, you are taking out from your savings. Okay, now on the right side of zero savings, on the right side, okay, you can see that savings become positive because on top, your consumption, the blue color line, is now less than 45-degree line. Remember, 45-degree line is balanced spending. So when your blue color consumption function is less than that, that means there's some left over, your savings become positive. Okay, that's how these two lines are related. Okay, consumption on top, savings below. Now the slope of these two curves, okay, these two functions will let you measure MPC, change in C over change in YD. Of course, you need 2 points. Okay. Similarly for here, change in S over change in YD. Okay, given by 2 points. All right. So it's possible to calculate MPC and MPS from the formula change in C over change in YD in terms of numbers given to you, and or it can be provided in the form of a diagram. Okay, you will see these questions in your tutorial. Now, our consumption and savings function can shift. That means the curve can shift higher or lower. Okay, that means our autonomous consumption, also autonomous savings, can go higher or lower. Now, what does this mean in layman's terms? That means we are spending more even when our income does not change. Or we could be spending less even though our income does not change. Okay, now what will cause us to behave like that? 3 reasons. It could be real interest rate changing, size of household wealth changing, or the expected future income of household changing. Okay, these 3 factors will cause us to spend more or less even though our income does not change. Let's have an example. Now, for example, when there's a fall in real interest rate, okay, that means the banks are paying less interest for our savings. Okay, so the inclination to the consumer is I might as well spend more. Okay, since I put my money in the bank, it doesn't earn me much interest, I might as well go and spend the money away. Now note, my income has not changed. okay, but I'm spending more. Similarly, when my household wealth goes up, okay, for example, more members in your family are now working, you feel more confident, all right, and you want to spend more, even though your income doesn't change. So this is another example, all right. Or your boss tells you you are getting a promotion soon. 2 months later, okay, 2 months later your salary will go up, but not now. But you already you feel very confident, you want to spend more. So that is an example that you spend more even when your income has not increased yet. Okay, let's take a look at how it looks like on the diagram. Now, this is the example of people spending more even though their income has not changed. Okay, so A goes up to become A prompt. Okay, and the slope remains the same because we assume that your inclination to spend, your MPC and MPS remains the same. Okay, so consumption goes up at all levels, so there's a parallel shift upwards. Now note where consumption, the new consumption curve C1 hits the 45-degree line, okay, the new zero savings point is here. Okay, so minus A prompt, okay, is now lower because your autonomous spending is now higher. Okay, so your autonomous negative savings is now lower. Okay, so your savings function shift parallel down. Okay, so your zero savings point is now here, correspond with here. Okay, so this is your new savings curve. Okay, now you can see this is like a mirror image. Okay, the consumption and savings are mirror image of each other. When they move backwards, okay, this one move up, it's like mirror, they move backwards and move closer together. All right, so here consumption goes up, savings goes down. Okay, naturally, because if you spend more, your savings will naturally go down. All right, let's take a look at another example. Okay, in another example, in this case, consumption falls. Okay, you shift downwards. Again, you are spending less even when your income does not change. So a possible reason, like you're expecting your future income to fall, maybe you think that your boss is going to fire you, okay, or more members in your family are retiring, that means less income. So you feel that you need to spend less, even though your income still remains. Okay, so you can see that there's a fall in your consumption across all levels. Okay, but note your slope remains the same, MPC, MPS remains the same. So your consumption falls. You now cut the 45-degree line earlier. Okay, so the zero savings point is now here. Okay, so your negative autonomous saving is now higher. Okay, because you are overspending less, so your negative savings is also lesser. Okay, like a mirror image, they move closer together. Okay, so it hits the zero savings point earlier, so this is your new savings curve. Okay, so like a mirror image, they move closer together. All right, now next week we will look at how the whole of AE changes and what impact it brings to the economy. So for this part, we are only looking at the C components, the consumption and of course the savings component. All right, for the remainder of the topic, I'll see you guys next week.